Class 3 Chapter 9, Operational Marketing Planning in Hospitality and Tourism. Setting operational marketing planning objectives. At the operational level, planners are likely to create many and varying objectives ranging, for example, from occupancy rates for a hotel manager to newspaper sales for receptionists. Before examining the diversity of such operational objective, there are some basic principles to consider which incidentally should also apply to the setting of strategic basic objectives. The role of objectives in management. A major role of any objectives, but particularly operational objective, is to motivate the employee for whom it is set. Objectives should also direct an employee's efforts, suggesting areas to concentrate on and areas to play down. They also help others understand what different departments and individuals' roles are within the organization. Well-set objectives will also allow both manager and employee to appraise the employee's performance and plan improvements. General principles in setting objectives. There are many acronyms that help set objectives correctly. For example, SMART objectives, i.e. specific to a named post, measurable, compare achieve 60% room occupancy with achieve good occupancy rates, goal, achievable, realistic, and time constrained. Typical operational marketing planning objectives. In an industry as diverse as travel and tourism, there are likely to be a very wide range of industry-specific objectives. However, by looking at typical operational marketing planning objectives, we can get guidance as to the sort of objectives we should see in such a plan. Sales volume. This is a commonly used objective and can be applied from the chief executive down to individual salespeople. Similarly, it can relate to the organization as a whole or to specific products or specific markets. Market share objectives. Here the goals and targets become shares rather than volumes. It is worth remembering that we can increase sales volume, but actually decrease our share if a market is growing quicker than we are expanding our sales, and vice versa. Marketing cost objectives. In some instances, the factor an individual is responsible for can only be measured as a cost. Chefs and restaurant managers are all familiar with the importance of portion control in keeping food operations profitable, but market research and advertising are equally difficult to set objectives for, except in terms of costs. A more sophisticated approach is not to control costs in absolute terms, but to control them as a ratio to revenues. For example, management may allow conference salespeople entertainment expenses as a ratio of the business they book. This would prevent them from not being able to buy a potential client a drink because they have run out of expenses. Profit objectives. It is perhaps a common fault not to ascribe to anyone the responsibility for profit. Many organizations remedy this by setting profit goals at departmental levels, for example the restaurant in a hotel. It could be argued that the profit objective might be set at all levels. Although it can get difficult where the individual is not responsible for both revenue and cost, it is unfair to hold people responsible for things not within their control. Marketing mix. An operational plan should detail actions to be taken in the areas of which marketing is in charge. It should expect to set goals and targets in each area of the mix: product, price, promotion and place. Contingency planning. Even at the operational level, with shorter time scales, managers may be in a situation where they are uncertain how the future might develop. So that they are not surprised by changing external events, they should plan for alternative courses of action known as contingencies. An example of this might be planning what to do if the competition lowers prices. It may be hoped this will not happen, but it is best to be prepared in case it does. Planners might consider reducing prices and the consequential effect that might have on profits. Of course, it is possible to consider meeting this competitive action with a non-price action such as free meals. Budgeting. It is tempting to assume that budgeting is the responsibility of finance, but most companies will expect the marketing department to put a cost on their planned actions. There may be some joint activity at this stage. For example, we might, with finance staff and others, look at the impact of our decisions in terms of break-even analysis. Some of the more sophisticated forecasting techniques, such as multiple regressions, can predict the sales impact of marketing decisions, for example the impact of increasing advertising spend. Implementation. At this stage of the planning cycle, managers move from planning, which despite its complexity will have merely created something on paper, to action where things get done. Putting it as simple as that belies the actual difficulty of this stage. Marketing planning fails, not because of poor plans, but because of the ability and attitudes of those expected to put the plans into practice. Summary. Operational marketing planning, i.e. plans that are usually for 1 year, should be made in the light of the bigger picture painted by strategic plans. They are usually less contentious than strategic plans, as many can see the logic of planning of years' marketing activities. Problems tend to arise when setting objectives. Done properly, the objectives will help the organization to prosper in light of market needs and the competition. Objectives should flow from forecasting, which in itself should be as objective a process as possible. There is a tendency for others to have wishful thoughts about marketing objectives, usually wishing them to be bigger. The temptation to inflate objectives too much in order to meet others' ambitions should be fought. It may well lead to demonization of people in the organization and failure to perform. Forecasts, objectives and plans are usually improved by open and frank discussion with everyone involved. Practice test. Explain the importance of sales forecasting on hospitality and tourism marketing.